Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me today. Whether you are currently a subscriber, if you're not, I hope you become one. Keep following us on this journey. If you're new to the channel, then you've got a backlog of almost 500 different videos. We typically come to about 3 times a week with different craft projects, furniture refinishing, tips and tricks, the whole schmozzle. Today, I was going through my frame stash. Now I have a bunch of frames that I keep on hand that have nice mattings and good modern frames that I use for artwork. But I also have a stash of frames that I've got because they're cool. They're detailed, they're ornate, they're kind of cool. And what I wanted to do was show you how you can use them. So one idea of how to use them. And we're gonna marry these up. So the first thing that I need to do is this one is just empty. It does empty. It has no glass, it has no mirror, it has no backing. And I'm going to need a backing for this. So I am just taking, because I have an abundance of cardboard here in the shop, so boxes that I've had to cut down for various reasons. So I'm just taking one straight corner and I am just, oh, you're not even a pencil end. So I'm just lining it up and I am seeing, and you're a broken pencil end. Oh my goodness. Hang in there. You're down to my last one here. All right. So I'm just lining up what would in essence be my cut lines so that I can insert it into here. And it makes sense to get it inserted before I begin doing any kind of painting because I will want it painted too. So I am just going to get this trimmed up and cut out, and then I'll come back and begin to explain the rest of the project to you. All right, I have my cardboard cut out and I have it inserted and tacked down on the inside. So this now becomes my backing. What I do want to insert into it is from the frames mold from IOD, I already have a resin cast of the little round mold. Now, I have tons of resin casts. Whenever I do a project that involves casting resin, any excess resin I put into molds. So I have different flowers, I have some of the frames. No, I don't want to use you. In particular, I always make up more of the little deer as I'm getting closer to Christmas. I have, you know, little snowflakes and some of the little embellishments. And that way, they're already done. I mean, I even have one of the big honking Christmas trees from this past year's mold. So whenever I'm doing like coasters or things, I don't agonize over the fact that, oh, I made too much resin. More often than not, okay, I'm not futzing with that anymore. More often than not, I deliberately make too much resin. So that way it's available for me. What I want to do is I want to glue this little frame mold into the center of this design. So we're doing a frame within a frame. Do you get what I'm going? Within the frame, within the big one. So we are layering these. Now I'm just using some E6000. You could use hot glue for this if you wanted. You could use some Gorilla adhesive, whatever you've got that's gonna hold it together. All right, let me put a little bit more of a dab on it. And then I'm just gonna take a little kind of rubber spatula and just kind of push it out to the ends a little bit. Oh my goodness. Push it out to the edges a little bit. Put that off to the side to dry. And now, just eyeball this. center it off. All right, so in essence, I'm gonna be now looking to paint the entirety of this, including the mirror, in beadboard by DIY. And I'm going to paint this, the entirety of it, in beadboard by DIY. So I'm painting everything white. I'm using this because I want to distress. And that's going to be easier with a clay-based paint than using something like an all-in-one by Fusion. Doesn't mean I can't do it, but I have to work a lot harder at it. And I don't want to have to do that. So I'm going to, this one's have a hanging hook, so I want to make sure that it's hanging properly. I'm looking now at, gee, I could glue this in right away, but then I have really tough edging. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If I glue this in and then paint it, and quite honestly, if you like the look, you can just go with this, right? That if you like the gold, this is very, well, because Bridgerton's on right now, very Bridgerton inspired, in which case then the mirror serves as an awesome backdrop. I'm just taking it out of kind of the Regency look and doing it a little bit more up to date. But because there's very narrow banding here, it's gonna be harder to paint. So I'm just gonna paint them separate and then attach them together. I like to make my life as easy as possible. So 2 coats of paint on both, and then we'll be back. I've got 2 coats of my paint on this. And then it was decision time. Before I go to seal this, because we use the DIY clay-based paint, it needs to be sealed. I either choose to distress back to these details or seal them and highlight them in a different way. I was planning on distressing. So I was planning on bringing back some of those golds and things, but because I'm merging a couple of different frames, I decided not to distress after all. The golds on each of the frames are different. I'm a little concerned that if I distressed them, that the golds wouldn't match and it's gonna look a little disjointed. Also, if you recall on this one, there is some black on it as well. And I'm really, now that they're looking white and bright, I'm really looking at trying to keep them fairly light looking. Now, what I do want to do is seal them with wax. I'm, however, opening a DIY top coat. I'm just using liquid patina because it's here. It can serve as a top coat. It's certainly gonna work for what I want it to do. You could use Big Top, you could use a polyacrylic. I'm just looking at, remember we put that little molded, we used a resin in the mold, but we used one of the little IOD molds from the frames molds, and we just inserted that. I am just top coating that inner oval. So just where it's shiny right now. I'm going to add a transfer to that. Now you could add, maybe do a reverse decoupage of a picture, family member's picture in there, so you set it up like a cameo, because it kind of has that feel with the oval. You could decoupage something on. I'm just gonna use a little piece of transfers because I have lots of little pieces hanging out. So I'm gonna do that. While that's drying though, I'm going to switch over and I'm going to use some clear wax to be able to seal the rest of the surfaces. All the surfaces on the big one and then the outer surfaces on the other. And the reason that I did the liquid patina for the transfer is that wax serves as a resist. If the wax is not fully cured for a couple of weeks, the transfer's not gonna stick. So I'm just using that to seal that section, and I'm gonna wax everything else. Now, we're ultimately gluing and attaching that smaller frame in here. So I am only gonna wax to about that, you know, 1/2 inch around the outside, just so I don't have a wet wax surface that I'm trying to adhere the next piece to, right? So again, thinking of wax as a resist, you can avoid all of that entirely by just top coating the whole thing. Instead, I just like the look and the feel of wax. So I'm choosing to do this, which makes my life a little bit tougher. You could go the easy route, just seal everything with a polyacrylic. That would work for our next steps just fine, without any of the additional cautions about the wax and avoiding certain areas. Okay, I've gone through a lot of the transfers that I still have available, meaning, which one's my scissor drawer? Wrong, there. I kept opening the same one, expecting a different result. So, one, this is a small space in this little oval. And secondly, I don't want something that's going to be, now I'm looking at another door because I need a stick. Okay. So it's a small space, and I don't want, I mean, it's all going to be pretty monochromatic, but we're going to be adding, we haven't done it yet, but we're going to add a little bit of gold. So I was thinking I could get away with just the medallion part of this transfer, which is from the brocante transfer, because it's kind of in the black and gray, and it's got kind of a yellowy gold background. Another option, and this is from the Collage de Fleurs, is to steal just that rose, just that little rose bud in the center. And I'm thinking, I'm going that way. It's got that same kind of yellowy tone, so it would work with the gold, but it's just kind of simple in and of itself. Just making sure there wasn't another one in behind. Now I want to leave that rose intact and behind it. So just a little fussy cutting toward the end there. All right, now, how tall are you? Oh, and it's looking like it is the perfect height. I just have to see if I need to take any out. No, it's perfect. All right, this was meant to be. This is a sign. This is a sign. So I'm just going to, now what I didn't do is I didn't wax in around this because I wanted to make sure that I got my rose onto that polyacrylic first to that top coat. And I have to admit, I'm rushing the top coat a little bit here. So we'll see how I do. Because I'm a little concerned, yes, I'm a little concerned that I'm gonna lift some of the paint up. You know what, just avoid these issues by just waiting. Waiting can be a good thing. Okay, awesome. All right, now that I have that in place, and you can see how that's gonna look, just beautifully simple. So I am now going to take my clear wax, and I am going to be able to wax the rest of that frame and wax over top of my transfer to kind of seal it in place. So that's that part. Done, and we can let that kind of dry. I still don't want to attach these two frames together because I'm going to do a little bit of detail work now, and it's going to be so much easier for me to do that effectively if I'm able to turn them around and you know, get down into the sides of this one and that sort of thing, right? It's just, you know what? Just try and think a little bit ahead so that you make your life as easy as possible. Sometimes it's a miss for me, but other times it's good. So this is one of those times I'm thinking ahead. What I do have is Golden Rule by DIY. I liked the idea of the white and the gold, but I decided not to distress back because this gold was pretty harsh and the two golds were not the same. And we're going to all this effort to unify them. I just thought if I distressed, then I would make them look like separate entities again. So I'm just taking a little bit of that Golden Rule on my finger, and I am just going to gently use it over top of those raised areas. And one of the things that's beautiful about this Golden Rule is that it's got a very soft, translucent look and feel to it if you just are doing a little bit of it. You can strengthen it after. I like to go over and do all my surfaces nice and light, and then I can go and layer this on itself to deepen the color if I want to strengthen it out in some areas. But you know what? Go light and then build it up rather than going too heavy to begin with, because you can't really take it back once it's on there and it's starting to dry. And you could use a rub and buff product, but it is much stronger in color and it is more opaque. I love it for certain things. For this, because I'm trying to keep it looking still fairly soft and, you know, just, you know, not romantic necessarily, but definitely in a softer vein. There's a little bit too much there. I'm adding this while my clear is still wet, so that I took my clear brush and I was able to take some of that off where I had too much on my finger and it got pushed into the crevices more than I wanted. But I'm just going to build up the color on this, nice and slow, keeping it soft. It's so pretty. And this may be the only coat that I do. That's entirely possible, right? That this has got enough color and definition to it that I'm thinking, that's it. That's enough. That's beauty. Sometimes the hardest part is knowing when to stop. Can you guys see? See how that just brought out some of those details nice and soft? I'm going to carry on with that, and then I'm going to do the same to this one. But if I had this sitting in there, it would have been very difficult for me to get down into those edges. Instead, what I'll do is get the edges done on these, and then I can kind of wax a little bit more if I needed to, because I missed a couple of spots in with the clear wax. Last step in our process is to marry these two officially together. To do that, I'm going to double glue it, which means I'm going to use some E6000 and put that in kind of dabs in spots, which is going to take longer to dry, but it is definitely going to help adhere this in place. And then I'm going to take my glue gun and, if it's still attached here, and I'm going to kind of dab in between where I put the E6000. So between the two of these, I got coverage. And what I just want to do is kind of eyeball this. Put it down. I just want to hold it in place for a second or two to ensure that that hot glue has kind of dried before I pick it up to show you and have it slide. So I did all the edging because that's what's in contact with our surface. And then this is our finished project. So very cool, just it all kind of ends up getting tied together, married together. I love just having that simple little rose. I think that becomes a cool little, I'm just looking, kind of going, now that I'm looking at it, did I get it in the middle or not? Well, let's hope I did because it's not moving. So I think that rose is just the perfect little touch. It's just a little bit of that kind of golden yellow. We've got all the gold, and you can see what I said about that gold looking very kind of soft. It's not garish, it's not in your face. It highlights some of the details, but still having that and I'm going to say softness again to it, not to be repetitive, but it just highlights it in a very low-key way, and it's not in your face, so it fits with kind of that more romantic feel to this. Let me know what you think of this one. I mean, you could have gone and done exactly the same thing and painted it out in black, and then with a gold even on that, done something different than just the single rose in there, because you could go a little bit of a bolder statement, you know, maybe even like a metallic foil printing in there. It would look awesome. Completely different look, but exactly the same technique. You could do this again with any color of your choice. It's going to look completely different, but that same idea of layering the frames within the frames as many times as you can go, depending upon the size of the frame that you start with. And if you're starting off with thrifted frames or old frames that are lying around your house that seem a little too ornate for your home now, doing something like this completely changes the look out. Looking forward to hearing from you on this one, guys, as always, and looking forward to seeing you on the next. Until then, take care.